happens here at Harbor Breeze. This year so far, we've had basically in December, this last month, we had the record sightings, which was, I believe it was over 500 in December, and that's the most at the census. There's a census up at Point Vincennes, American Cetacean Society. There's volunteers there every single day, and they basically count as many whales as they can that come by. We'd love to show people the whales just right off our coast. You know, when the gray whales start migrating, they're only a couple of miles off of our coastline. It's great that we get a chance to take the community out, people who don't know that this is like right in their backyard. Like us going on the news a few times have gotten quite a few people out here to enjoy the whales. This past year, we've seen an increased number in humpback whales. We've had a few humpback whales that were just kind of hanging out here in our local area, maybe just more food, you know, more bait fish such as anchovies that they like to eat.
All right, folks, if you have tickets for the whale watching cruise, come on down. We're now boarding. Have your tickets ready, please. We're now boarding the 2 to 2.5 hour whale watching cruise. Now, at any point in time, if you have a stretch pillow, squeeze your seasick, you know the best place to be is the lower level past the boat. That's the smoothest riding place on this vessel.
Now we're going to need everybody's help on board today. The more eyes on the water, the more success we'll be able to spot the whales off of our coast.
Sierra Fox Anchorage 100 local time over. Every Libra, we are jamming.
So here at the Aquarium of the Pacific, I'm an education specialist and a whale biologist. My main position here in regards to whales is our whale watching programs and our photo ID internship. We essentially send college interns out to help us collect data on whales from our whale watching boats. And in the summertime, we get blue whales, which are the largest animal in the world, and we're able to individually tell them apart by the markings on their body. So we also have fin whales. We're part of a really large fin whale project of trying to identify the population out here.
One of the best whale watching boats anywhere in the West Coast. We're always fortunate enough to have a marine biologist or a naturalist on board. Today we got Andrea with us. She's with the Aquarium of the Pacific.
I essentially go out on the whale watching boats and I take photos of all the marine mammals that we see during each trip. And then later on I go into the computer and I process all of the data, including GPS location, species, behavior, everything. And I try and match up the whales that we see during the day to whales that we've seen in the past. My research is more geared towards blue whales. What we do is we try and decrease ship strike since we're coming out of one of the biggest ports. They're just such majestic creatures, you know, and I think it's so important to be able to conserve them.
Increase in sightings this year, we're not totally sure why, but we are noticing that over the last couple of years that the months of December and January have been full of whales. There's a couple ideas for that. We know that there's a shift in the migration, and what we're talking about right now are the gray whales. So we actually have quite a few species. One of the ideas is that it's climate change. So it could be that up in the Arctic, their food is changing, or where they're having to go for food is changing, which might be prompting them to leave earlier. So we're getting a bigger flux of numbers earlier in the season.
Last week I was watching KTLA News and they did a story on this boat, and they came out and they saw pods of whales. I was so excited, and I've never seen whales before, and I've lived in Los Angeles all of my life practically. And I thought, well, this is something Richard and I should do. So Richard got tickets,
right? And
here we are. And it was wonderful. It was so wonderful. And my favorite part was the tail going down. It was so beautiful. What about you?
It was just spectacular, especially with the large group of whales, and they were visible for a long period of time, and it was just magical, you know? I mean, you almost feel like you had a religious experience. Just wonderful.
Here off of Long Beach, this is a kind of two-way street or two-way area that these whales can go. They can either kind of hook left and stay closer to shore, or they can continue offshore a little bit and go behind Catalina Island. So when we're seeing more numbers, it doesn't necessarily mean that the population is increasing. We think the population, as they're migrating, is taking the more closer to shore routes. And we don't know why that is. That will take time to figure out. It could just be they like it better here.
So I've been working for Newport Landing for about 2 years now. On the water, doing naturalist work like this, it's only been about 3 months. But I do have a long background in marine biology, whales, mammals. I worked with dolphins and sea lions training before, and I also work at the Aquarium of the Pacific, where I work with penguins, and I scuba dive there. So I have a lot of history of marine biology. We have probably about 30 to 40% whale watching boats. The rest of the boats are mainly built for fishing. So originally when the company started, it was basically a sport fishing company, but as the sightings became more and more prominent in our area in Newport Beach, we started to realize the benefit of having an ecotourism in our area like whale watching. Not only have we started to change our business and start catering more towards whale watching by incorporating naturalists on the boats for educational purposes, having school groups come on to learn about it. We also started on the water educational programs where they do citizen science on the water in some of our marine protected areas. So you guys were looking at a big pod of common dolphins. We see them all the time. They are the most abundant dolphin in our area. They live in every ocean in the world. They're one of the smallest species of dolphin. And they were out there just hanging out. They just migrate all around our area. They don't leave Southern California. They just move up and down the coast, and they can go about 100 miles a day in any direction, and they go really fast. They can go up to 29 miles an hour if they really wanted to. Just the Southern California back in the 1800s was one of the hubs for whaling, even in a boat and also from the shore. So lots of gray whales were killed in the 1800s because of whaling. So since whaling's not as popular any longer, and since we place a lot of protections on them and also changing some of the shipping routes in Long Beach, although there's still problems with entanglement around the world with whales, their numbers are starting to increase. 20 years ago, there wasn't a job for me. I wouldn't have a job 20 years ago, and there's only getting more demand for people who have the knowledge and background about whales because the public is starting to realize how important it is to protect these animals and how valuable they are to even see in our area. Some of these animals are over 100 feet long. They're longer than any dinosaur that's ever lived, and now people are just starting to understand and appreciate how important it is and what a treasure it is to have them here. So I only see this whale watching industry increasing and getting more popular as time goes on.